Right now, somewhere inside your body, an organ the size of your fist could be quietly losing power, and you would have absolutely no way of knowing because it never sends out a clear distress signal. If you're over 60, this matters more than almost anything else you'll watch this year, because the thing we're discussing today doesn't announce itself with pain, with pressure, or with any obvious symptom you'd recognize. It hides behind a single number on a blood test that most doctors mention for 2 seconds and move past. You feel fine. You look fine. And yet that number could already be telling a completely different story underneath the surface. Stay with me because in the next 60 seconds, you're going to understand exactly why this silent warning matters so much and why almost nobody catches it in time. Here's something most people never think about until it's too late. Your kidneys are built to suffer in silence. They don't ache when something goes wrong. They don't send sharp signals the way your chest or your back might. Instead, they absorb damage quietly, year after year, continuing to function just enough that you never notice anything unusual, and that's exactly what makes this so dangerous. Because by the time symptoms actually show up, swelling around the ankles, unusual tiredness that sleep doesn't fix, a strange change in how often you need the bathroom at night, a significant portion of kidney function may already be gone, not a small amount, often a shockingly large amount. The body waited until the damage became impossible to hide before it finally said anything at all. So what exactly is this number that quietly reveals so much? Imagine your kidneys as a constant filtration system running in the background of your life, non-stop, every single day without ever pausing. Every time your body uses energy, your muscles produce a small amount of natural waste. Your kidneys are responsible for catching that waste and clearing it out of your bloodstream before it builds up. When the filter works properly, that waste level stays low and steady in your blood. But the moment the filter starts to weaken, even slightly, even long before you'd ever feel a difference, that waste starts to accumulate. And here's the part that should genuinely concern you. By the time that number crosses into a range your doctor finally calls elevated, your kidneys may have already lost a significant portion of their original filtering ability. The test rarely catches the very beginning. It usually catches the middle of a process that's been quietly unfolding for years. Now think about what that means if you're over 60. Your kidneys have already been filtering your blood non-stop for 6 full decades. No pauses, no rest days, no vacations. Every single day of your life, working continuously in the background while you focused on everything else, your job, your family, your responsibilities, your daily routine. And like any system that runs non-stop for that long, small inefficiencies inevitably creep in. Not because of one dramatic mistake, but because of years of small, completely ordinary habits that felt harmless in the moment. The salty meals you've enjoyed for years without thinking twice. The over-the-counter medication you've reached for casually whenever something ached. The blood pressure number that crept upward so slowly you genuinely stopped noticing it had changed at all. None of it ever felt risky as it was happening, but your kidneys have been quietly keeping track the entire time. And this is exactly the part where I want you to lean in. Because right after this, I'm going to reveal the one daily habit that's silently damaging kidney function in an enormous number of people over 60. A habit so common, so completely normal in everyday life that almost nobody would ever suspect it as the cause. Keep watching, because what comes next might completely shift how you think about something you do without thinking almost every single day of your life. Let's get into it now. It isn't smoking. It isn't even sugar, although sugar absolutely plays its own role over time. The real hidden culprit is something far more invisible, ongoing mild dehydration combined with frequent casual use of everyday pain relief medication. Think honestly about how often you've reached for something for a headache, for joint discomfort, for a restless night without giving it any real thought, simply because it's sitting on a pharmacy shelf, available without a prescription, seemingly harmless. Except every single one of those pills has to pass directly through your kidneys to be filtered out. And when that habit combines with chronic, low-level dehydration, which becomes increasingly common with age because your natural sense of thirst weakens significantly over time, you create exactly the kind of internal environment where kidney filtration slows down quietly, not with any dramatic event, not with any obvious warning sign, just slowly, persistently, like sediment settling at the bottom of a glass that nobody ever thinks to shake. Here's something that tends to genuinely surprise people the first time they hear it. Most assume that kidney decline only happens to people who have been clearly diagnosed with diabetes or severe high blood pressure. But research has consistently shown that a meaningful portion of people experiencing kidney decline after 60 have neither condition formally diagnosed at all. Their numbers appeared acceptable during routine checkups. They felt completely normal in their day-to-day life. No major red flags were ever raised in any appointment. And yet the decline was happening anyway, hidden behind a blood pressure reading that was only slightly elevated, or a blood sugar level just barely above the recommended range, numbers close enough to normal that nobody treated them with urgency, but numbers that, when stacked together silently across years, gradually wore the kidneys down regardless. So here's a question worth asking yourself honestly right now. When was the last time you actually looked at your own kidney numbers, instead of simply accepting a quick, everything looks fine during a rushed appointment? Because fine and optimal mean two very different things, especially once you've crossed into your 60s. A number can sit comfortably inside what's considered a normal range and still be slowly trending upward year after year, and that upward trend is often the earliest meaningful warning your body gives you, arriving long before any symptom becomes noticeable enough to take seriously. The real problem is that almost nobody is ever taught to watch for a trend. People are taught to look for a single fixed cutoff, as though kidney health works like a switch that's simply on or off, rather than a dial that slowly turns down over the years without anyone watching closely enough. This is precisely why so many people feel completely blindsided later in life. Not because the warning signs were never there, but because nobody ever showed them exactly where to look in the first place. And once you finally know where to look, everything starts to feel different. You begin paying attention to how much water you're actually drinking each day, rather than assuming you're drinking enough simply because you feel fine. You start questioning that daily painkiller habit you'd never previously thought twice about. You start asking your doctor directly for your actual number instead of quietly accepting a vague reassurance and moving on. These shifts feel small individually, but small shifts, repeated consistently over years, are exactly what end up changing the entire trajectory of what happens to your kidneys later in your 70s and 80s. Because here's the honest truth that rarely gets said out loud clearly enough: kidney decline after 60 isn't usually caused by one dramatic, identifiable event. It's the slow buildup of 1,000 small, invisible choices repeated quietly across decades, none of which ever felt particularly risky in the moment they were made. And that's exactly why it becomes so easy to dismiss entirely, right up until the point where it can no longer be dismissed at all. The encouraging part in all of this is that early decline can often be slowed significantly once it's properly identified, but only if it's caught early enough to actually act on, rather than waiting for symptoms that, by their very nature, tend to arrive far too late to make as much of a difference. So before you move on from this video, take a moment to genuinely think back to your last blood test. Do you actually know your own creatinine number? Has it shifted at all compared to a few years ago, even slightly, even in a way that seemed too small to matter? Because that single quiet piece of information sitting somewhere in a file you may have never even opened could be telling you something your body hasn't yet found another way to communicate clearly. I'd genuinely like to know, has a doctor ever sat down and explained your kidney numbers to you in a way that actually made real sense? Or did you walk away just as confused as before, left with more questions than answers? Tell me honestly in the comments below, because your experience might be exactly what someone else watching this video right now truly needs to hear today.